Hey guys, Triple B here with your weekly news roundup. Sorry it's a little bit later than normal this week. Did change roles at work, so just been a little bit preoccupied, and I'll be honest, my brain's been a little bit dead at the end of the day, so hasn't been any deck reveal videos recently either, but that should be changing this week now that I'm kind of settled into the role. For this week, there's been quite a bit of exciting news, and as you can see on the screen, Charizard EX Hyper Rare has been revealed. It's going to be a Gold Rare, very interesting, and it's also going to be available for free during the World stream. So there's going to be a code similar to how the Full Art Iono was given out. It being the flagship Pokemon of the new set too, I'm sure on the Battle Pass we're going to be getting some as well. So it's just going to be a nice way to either decorate your playset or maybe pad it up a little bit. We haven't seen what the Battle Pass is just yet, so don't quote me on that, but if it's anything like previous sets, it's usually the guy that's on the booster boxes. Lugia we got, Chinpow we got. I feel like Charizard's going to be the one in the Battle Pass as well. So pretty cool. Also getting to see Absol EX. Interesting card. It's going to be in our Obsidian Flames set. For 1 Dark Energy Future Sight, look at the top 3 cards of either player's deck and put them back in any order. It's okay. Like, there's going to be ways that you can obviously disrupt, use Iono, just make sure that your opponent's gone into a bricked hand, but the fact that it's an attack is a little bit lackluster. It'd be really cool if it was an ability, like when you play this from your hand, do that effect. Being an attack, though, it's, I don't know, like it's okay, but I don't realistically see it seeing play, maybe in some sort of control deck. Its second attack, though, Curse Sludge, 2 dark and a colorless, 100 damage, and if your opponent has 3 or fewer cards in their hand, another 120. So a basic Pokemon that can do 220, it's okay. A little bit tricky to obviously get that energy out. You can be using things like Dark Patch to kind of cheat some energy, maybe do it really quickly. If your opponent goes very aggressive with their hand size, burns through most of their cards, they're down to a 3-card hand, you go attach return, double Dark Patch, 220, knock out an EX on their first turn. That'd be okay, actually. But the first attack, I don't know, feels like it should be an ability, not an attack. Next up, we are getting to see the reveal of the King Gambit line. Well, a new King Gambit line. We had one in the base set Scarlet Violet, but the new one, Pawniard, 10 damage, flip 3 coins, 30 damage for each heads. Wait, that doesn't sound right. I feel like that's a typo. 10 multiplier of 10 damage, flip 3 coins, and it does 30 damage for each heads. No, it's capped at 30 damage. It's a 10 times multiplier. So if you hit all 3 as heads, 30 damage. Bisharp has Metal Claw, 20 damage, 1 Steel Energy, and the second attack, Fury Cutter, 50 damage as an additional one though. So flip 3 coins, if one's heads, 20 more, if 2 are heads, 60 more, and all 3 are heads, 120. So it gets up to 170. Not too bad on a stage 1 Pokemon for just 2 energy. And then it's going to evolve up into King Gambit though, that has a very interesting attack in Execute. If your opponent's active Pokemon has 4 more damage counters on it, it's knocked out. Is a stage 2, so a little bit awkward. 180 health though, so a little bit bulky and could be surviving hits, potentially taking multiple knockouts if you're lucky, or just bulk it up somehow. And the fact that it's 4 damage counters, there's ways to cheat that out. You can be using Radiant Alakazam and moving things around, Gapejaw Bog to get those damage counters out, Halucha to get those damage counters out, or the new tool card here, Revenge Punch. When the Pokemon this is attached to is knocked out by damage from an attack, your opponent puts 4 damage counters on the attacking Pokemon. So just an excellent way to guarantee there's 4 damage counters to go into King Gambit. It's pretty cool. The fact that you could be attaching this to potentially like a Radiant Jirachi, they knock it out, get any 3 cards from your deck, put a Pawniard in the active, the Jirachi is going to get you Rare Candy, King Gambit, attach for turn, knock something out. Kind of cool, and then just keep putting Revenge Punches onto the new attacker, so then anytime they get hit, you just set up another King Gambit and go, or have that Gapejaw and Radiant Alakazam out. Definitely could be an interesting rogue deck potential there. Next, we are seeing the Stadium Card Town Department Store. It's also going to be in our Obsidian Flame set, most likely. This is going to let each player, once per turn, just look through their deck and get a Pokemon tool card, reveal it, put it into their hand. It's pretty sweet, especially since things like Forest Seal Stone still seeing quite a bit of play. The fact that you could just play this Stadium to guarantee that card, to guarantee you any other card, where it's like, hey, you need a Battle VIP pass first turn. You don't really have a definite way to search that out, but just adding more consistency to get into those consistency cards, like you have 4 VIP pass, you have 2 or 3 of this Stadium, you have 2 or 3 Forest Seal Stone, you're going to hit it. It's kind of crazy. Also being able to get you into things like Choice Belts, in a pinch situation, it's really helpful. So definitely a Stadium I can see seeing quite a bit of play, to be honest. Next, we are seeing quite a few cards from Obsidian Flames. So Glimorra, is it? Yeah, Glimorra EX. a little bit of a frustrating card to see here, I'll be honest. So we did see the Glimlet that had the Ascension attack, so you can use Ascension and evolve into this immediately. And Glimorra has the ability Dustfield. As long as this is in the active spot, your opponent can't have more than 3 bench Pokemon. If they have 4 or more bench Pokemon, they have to discard until they have down to 3. A lot of decks are filling up their benches very quickly. Gardevoir is, Lost Box is, Mew is, so having this guy, it's definitely going to be pretty disruptive. Obviously, being an ability, Path to the Peak shuts this off, but that's not a guaranteed thing. Like, if you go into this and have a bunch of counter stadiums, your opponent's really going to be in a tough spot. Its attack 2, Poisonous Gem, 140. Opponent's Pokemon is now poisoned. It is a fighting type, so you can be using Grant to scale up the damage on this. Actually seems like it's got some potential, and kind of keen to mess around with this card when it does come out. Also, being a fighting, you can be using Gutsy Pickaxe to accelerate energy out to it. Yeah, a little bit silly. Maybe it's going to combo with Ting Lu. Like, you chuck this in the active, break your opponent's bench, escape rope, go into Ting Lu, shut off their abilities. They have a bad time. You're just kind of sitting there going like, hey, yeah, I'm enjoying myself. And you're going to lose friends quick. But get some wins, I'm sure. Like, there's definitely a concept there. We are seeing a Scizor. So Punishing Scissors, 10 damage, does 50 more damage for each of your opponent's Pokemon in play that has an ability. Kind of silly. 1 Steel Energy as well. So yeah, I'm for it. Are seeing a Mawile with the ability Special Eater. When you play this Pokemon from your hand onto your bench, you get to discard a special energy from your opponent's active Pokemon. Kind of cool and could definitely be an interesting tech. It does have 90 HP. I'm realizing you guys can't see that on the screen because I'm zoomed in a little too much. There we go. 90 HP though, so you can search it with Level Ball. You can get it back from the discard with Rescue Carrier. Definitely an interesting card to have in the format. We also get to see the supporter card Rhyme. I don't know if we've seen the regular art of this, but we're seeing the full art. You get to draw 3 cards, and then your opponent switches their active Pokemon with one of their bench. So similar to the item card Repel, but mixed with like Hop or How, or what's the one in the current format? Nimona? I think Nimona is draw 3 at the moment. Oh, interesting concept. I like that they're giving these draw 3 cards a bit more versatility to them than just draw 3. Like, we have Avery that's draw 3, wreck your opponent's bench. We have Worker that's draw 3, break a stadium. Now we have this that's draw 3 and a bit of Gust. It's cool. It's definitely good to have a bit of straight draw and just an additional effect to go with it. Just straight draw 3 is kind of, well, they don't see play. There's a reason. Also getting to see the, is it alt art? Trainer gallery art of the Charizard EX in its Terraform, where it's just like smashing through a window. So you got to see the little Charmander where he's like inside the house and there's a Pidgey outside of the window and it's like, let me out. And now we get to see Charizard where he's just obviously broken the house. So there's a reason that Squirtle's the best starter. I'm just saying. Some people like Bulbasaur. He's also pretty cool, but like Charizard's a bit of a dick, just saying. I don't know if you watched the anime, but like, yeah, it's sticking to this theme. There is also the Tyranitar EX, the Ice-Q EX, and then they mentioned the other cards in here, but I feel like we've covered those all before. These are just the new ones that have been revealed here. Next up, we do get to see some visuals on the little mini decks that they're putting out for kids. So it's the My First Battle decks is what they're called, and we get to see, well, the box they're going to come in. So pretty cute artwork on there. We're getting the one with Bulbasaur. There's also the one with Squirtle and Charmander. We're getting to see the cards. And the interesting thing I've noticed about the cards, they don't have weakness, resistance, or retreat costs into them. They also don't have any regulation stamps. So I don't think these will be legal for standard play. So don't think of like, oh, hey, cool. Now there's a Charmander, Bulbasaur, and Squirtle that will never rotate, have no weakness, and free retreat. Well, that's just the best version. I don't think we can play these ones in standard. They also have a blue border, and from these images, looks like they'll have a different card back. Those might be sleeves, but I don't think these will be standard legal. They're more so just to help kids get into the game. It's a 17 card mini deck just to kind of help them get their head around it. And yeah, hopefully build up the community going into the future. Next, we are seeing illustration rares of Pidgeot EX and some other cards that are going to be in Obsidian Flames. So we're getting 2 Capsikids. They're both okay. They evolve into Scavilion. The new Scavilion, though, is both grass and fire type, which is pretty cool. Its attack, Spicy Headbutt. Great name. 110 damage. And it's not affected by resistance, which is really interesting. So if they're resistant to grass or they're resistant to fire, it's irrelevant because it just ignores it. 110 damage. isn't like heaps. It does cost a grass and double colorless, so you could be using a reversal energy to pay for this. So Zorobox, I think we'll enjoy this, especially since you can be using super effective glasses on it. Triple 110, it does 330. You're gonna, well, you should be killing anything in format. EX cards, as much as we've seen at least so far, are capped at about 320, I believe. So yeah, I think that'll be able to deal with anything, which is really interesting. So I feel like Zorobox is just getting more tools going forward. We're getting to see a Toxtricity line, the Nuke's Toxel. Slight Intrusion, 30 damage, and it does 10 damage to itself. Maybe we'll get a Toxtricity in the future that if it's damaged, does a bit more damage, so that could be helpful. The Toxtricity has Leer. Flip a coin. If heads, your opponent's active Pokemon is now paralyzed. It's okay. Feels like an attack that should be on a basic Pokemon, not a stage 1, but it is what it is. Its second attack, Mix Loud, is a lightning and colorless, 50 damage. Also does 30 more damage for each different type of Pokemon on your bench. So you could be seeing like rainbow type decks making a comeback, and this would be an interesting inclusion to have into them to hit weakness into, well, things that are weak to lightning, like Lugia or Palkia V-Star. Definitely interesting. 30, so you've got 5 things on your bench, 150, base of 50, you're doing 200, doubles to 400. I feel like that'll be fine. Nuke Limit, this will obviously be evolving into the new Glimorra EX we're seeing. It has Iron Wall. Flip a coin. If heads, prevent all damage done to this Pokemon by attacks during your opponent's next turn. It's okay, but we've got a Glimmet that already has Ascension, so I feel like that's just going to be the optimal one. But it's interesting we're getting other ones that do have kind of, well, they've got playability to them. Like 60 HP is not bad, and the fact that it could effectively be invincible, also interesting. You can gust around it, so it's not great. Whereas you use Ascension, you go into Glimorra, you break your opponent's bench. I feel like that's optimal. Another Glimmet, because they like putting things out in 2, apparently. We got 2 Capsikids and 2 Glimmets, so neat. The Glimorra we already covered. A Togepi, Whiny Voice. Choose a random card from your opponent's hand. Your opponent reveals that, shuffles it into their deck. The Togetic, Shared Piece. Each player draws 3 cards. Togekiss has an ability that once during your turn, after your attack, okay, that's interesting. You can draw cards until you have 8 cards in your hand. I don't mind that. So you can go a little bit aggressive, break down your hand, sort of like Radiant Venusaur that after you do your attack, it drew until you had 4. This goes until you have 8. Obviously, Iono being a thing, your opponent's just going to Iono you immediately after, but it's then kind of forcing their hand that it's like, do you want me sitting on an 8-card hand? You're going to Iono me or are you going to boss kill something? And it's kind of like, well, I feel like they have to Iono you now. Being a stage 2 is a little bit awkward. In the future, though, maybe we get a Togekiss EX, and then this becomes just like a one-off inclusion in that deck. So could definitely see it being a good one to hang on to like 1 or 2 copies if you happen to pull them from packs, or if it comes out as like a 50-cent rare in Obsidian Flames. A new Varoom, 60 HP, 10 damage, draw a card. It's fine. 1 retreat, so might become like the one that sees play. Another Varoom. Yeah, they really are just in the mood of like, hey, just put out 2 basics. It has an attack, Suffocating Gas, 30 damage for 2 energy. 2 retreat cost. Yeah, okay. Varoom EX, we've already covered. It's kind of like Honchkrow V, where you can put up to 4 tool cards on it. Has an attack that does 170, you take 30 less damage. We are getting a new tool card that makes you take 30 less damage if you're a stage 1. So that's kind of where my head's at for that card, just in case you hadn't seen that previous video. And the new Pidgey line is very interesting, actually. So you're getting a Pidgey, 60 HP, gust, 20 damage. 20 damage for a colorless energy, actually not bad. Pidgeotto, it does 40 damage. It's this stage 1. You're going to use Rare Candy. And Pidgeot EX is the star here. It's a stage 2 Pokemon, so you Rare Candy up into it because we don't evolve into Pidgeotto. That would just be... Just don't do it. Come on. The ability, though, Quick Search. Once during your turn, you can search your deck for a card, put it into your hand. So sort of like Arceus V-Star. Only 1 card, and it's a stage 2, so a bit weaker, but it's not a V-Star ability, and you could use it every single turn. You can only use 1 Quick Search ability each turn, so it's not like you could just go, cool, get 4 Pidgeot EX on my deck. I just get 4 cards every single turn. That'd be a little too broken, but the fact that it's just you have a guaranteed out into a card every single turn, interesting. Also, the fact that you could just run Pidgeys as a bit of a bait for your opponent, where it's like, yeah, you want to boss kill that Pidgey, or else I'm going to get a Pidgeot EX. Like, you don't even have to technically run the Pidgeot EX in your deck. Just don't tell your opponent that. If it's a best of 3, just pretend you never got to set up into it and they're wasting their resources to kill Pidgeys for no reason and you're setting something else up. Is that what I'm going to do? Maybe. The people that go to my league watch these videos. Sometimes they do. So it probably won't work, but you might be able to get away with it. We're also getting a new Flamingo. It doesn't have United Wings. Probably not going to see play, but the fact that you could search this one out with the one that has United Wings is kind of interesting, since that one you play it to your bench, lets you search your deck for 3 Flamingo, doesn't specify they have to be that specific Flamingo, it just says Flamingo, so you can get this one. Its attack, Synchro Feather, does 60 damage, and if you have any Flamingo on your bench, does 60 damage to one of your opponent's bench Pokemon as well. So you use the other Flamingo, get this one into your hand, play this one, switch into it, get going. You can start doing some silly sniping, which is kind of cool. 60 though, not massive. You'd probably want to combine it with like Hawlucha to put some damage pings, take out some 70 HP things into like Lost Box. It's just, okay. Comfy in the active, cool, hit it for 10. I'll ping 2 on the bench with Hawlucha, snipe 1 for 60. Now it's dead, I take a prize. Next turn, escape rope the one from the active, do another Hawlucha. Like maybe it's a thing if Lost Box is still all over the place. Manaphy does exist though, so likely won't see play, but there's a concept there. We're getting another stadium in Pokemon League HQ. The attack cost for each basic Pokemon in play, both yours and your opponent, is 1 colorless energy more. Okay, I don't think Lost Box will be seeing as much play, potentially, so forget that last little bit I went over about that Flamingo. That's kind of broken. That's very silly, actually. Lost Box, like, they could always just bump up the amount of stadiums they run if people start running this. We also saw that Calamitous Wasteland where it increased the retreat cost of basic Pokemon by 1 energy, and that didn't really slow Lost Box down. Not that people were really running it, but it was kind of like a counter stadium for Lost Box. They obviously have Switch and Escape Rope to get around with it, and now Jet Energy, so that one they could work around. This one is a little bit more like you need a direct counter stadium to get around it. Interesting. New supporter card, Ortega. Look at your opponent's hand, choose 1 card you find there and put it on the bottom of your opponent's deck. Then your opponent can draw a card. Okay, that exists. Like, interesting for cubes, maybe. Standard play, not too sure. There may be certain situations it could come up, though. Gita, until the end of your turn, you... Wait, what? The wording on this one's a little weird. I'm just going to read this in my head quick, and then we'll read it all. Okay, until the end of the turn you play this card, none of your Pokemon can attack, including the Pokemon you put into play this turn. Search your deck for up to 2 basic energy cards and attach them to one of your Pokemon, then shuffle your deck. Not mad at that, actually. That's kind of interesting. So, like, decks where you're going to be trying to evolve up, like, into V-Stars or Stage 2 EXs, like, you don't necessarily get attacks off on those first turns. So, being able to open with Gita, play this, get energy out, like, you know that you're just going to pass at the end of your turn anyways. Interesting concept. We have a lot of Pokemon that are helping to draw cards. Squawkabilly's helping, Bibarel, Varoom, Curly-Align. Like, you've got other ways to draw cards. You don't need to be using supporters for it as much. So being able to use supporter for utility is becoming a lot more of a common thing. So having more that kind of fit that role, interesting. And yeah, I feel like this actually could see some play, which is, yeah, keen. I'm keen for that card. Next up, we are seeing Scarlet and Violet 151 is going to feature Galaxy Holofoil Energy. Cool. So every single energy type's in there, with the exception of Fairy, because it hasn't existed for a while. Yeah, interesting. I like that, actually. I'm not too sure how they're going to fit into the packs, like if they're just going to be like the reverse holo of the pack, or it's going to take the slot of the energy. Like, are you going to get a reverse holo energy and a basic energy in each pack? Or not each pack, but like the packs that you pull these in. Yeah, that's not too far off. We get it in September, so we'll find out soon, I'm sure. And last up, we are seeing a new Eevee, Espeon, and Umbreon. The Eevee, cheer up, attach an energy card from your hand to one of your Pokemon for a colorless energy. That's all right. If this is in Obsidian Flames, which it should be, might see play in pre-release. In Standard, not too sure. If we get some Evolution EXs in the future, maybe. The Espeon has Psychic Assault, 30 damage, and it does 10 more damage for each damage counter on your opponent's active Pokemon. That's okay. Like a 1 energy attack. That's not bad. Maybe there becomes like a Rainbow Road Evolution deck, you run Luminous Energy into it to be able to swap between single energy attacks. Could be a thing. Psybolt, 60 damage, flip a coin. If heads, your opponent's active Pokemon is now paralyzed. That's kind of cool. Umbreon also having a single energy attack in Feint Attack. Yeah, I feel like that's kind of what they're going for. It's just single energy of the type of the Eevee. I'm sure we'll be seeing more kind of fitting this theme soon. But it says 50 damage to one of your opponent's Pokemon. This attack's damage isn't affected by weakness or resistance or by any effects on your opponent's active Pokemon. So it's got like a shred attack. Not massive damage though. Pitch Black Blade, 140 damage during your next turn. This Pokemon can't attack. That's okay. They exist. I'm going to get them for my collection. That's probably it. I'll be honest. Big fan of Eevees. In my binder, I do have pages of them all. If you guys ever want to see them, let me know. I'm happy to post my collection. But yeah, that's it for the news. Some definitely interesting reveals. Anything in there catch your eye? Like the fact that we're getting that Charizard for free on live when Worlds is happening, the Gold Rare one. Very cool, since getting the physical copy is likely going to be pretty pricey. So just getting a digital version is always interesting. The King Gambit and Glimorra are definitely ones that I'm interested to experiment around with when the sets come out. But what about you? Am I missing anything in there? Is there some sort of broken combo hiding under there? Till next time, though, take care of yourselves.